Hello, and yeah, I'm I'm back. I watched some movies and I played some games, and I would like to talk about it. Did I talk about the Moon movie? I can't really remember. Actually, it's just called Moon. It's from 2009, and it's one of those brilliant examples of a trailer giving away too much. Um, but then when I watched the movie, knowing the let's say incident, I didn't like it. Like not hated it at all, but it was just kind of boring. The reactions, what they did with the premise, the reaction of the main character, I were were non-existent. They were not even like subtle. He was just, and I'm trying not to give it away, but the trailer I feel like did it, and it's not a original concept, but it still works. Um, so yeah, no, I just thought it was a bit long for what it was. Um, could have been cool. I watched it a long time ago, or long, maybe a few months or something. I don't know, but I don't think I mentioned it. So I thought I'll just do that. Over the holidays, I watched Rebel Moon. I had looked kind of forward to it. I think Zack Snyder can be interested. He made some of my favorite movies or movies that I like the most, but he also swings and misses, and Rebel Moon is a giant miss. Um, it was long, and it felt long, and it was weird. I like a ton of backstory that I didn't need. A plot device about a princess that can bring things to life, but then later it's shown that technology-wise they seem to be able to bring anyone back to life or capable of it. Um, it, it kind of in the story, someone has to go and collect a bunch of warriors. That's kind of like the main plot. Um, Kind of like what was Magnificent Seven, the Western, I think. I but I, yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but I also really don't want to recommend it. There's not the payoff that I expected or wanted. In fact, they seem to do very little. And this is a movie called Part One, but I don't see a reason why there should be a Part Two, other than they bring someone back and like they just refuse to end. This could have been a self-contained better story. What I felt a lot when watching it was that the movie was rushed. It rushed to get to new location, and those locations and premise were then wasted because the main character has to collect these warriors. Um, so I felt like um, this should have been a game. The Rebel Moon is would have been better as a game. The price of this first movie, I think, is 250, $300 million. You could have made a decent game about that. It actually reminds me of the game I'm currently playing called Iron Harvest. But I'll talk about that later, maybe in a separate video. Um, so you have, like, say in Rebel Moon, you have this main character, and you go to a new area, but there's all these assets. That was what I was thinking, having gone to VFX school. It's like, wow, they made like building and everything for just a few minutes because then they're off to the next planet. And I don't think that's engaging, fun to watch, but it can be a lot of fun to do in a video game where you are, yeah, of course, the main protagonist, but you're the driver. You are actually doing it. In case, like say, when books get adapted into movies, there's a rule about show, don't tell. Don't have someone talk about. Um, this was a big task, like saying a movie writes about Hercules, or a book. Sorry, I'm running through my words here. A book talking. in a book you're describing Hercules, cleaning the stable or doing the Herculean tasks. If you're from, one of them is cleaning a stable, and you can write about that in a book, and it's presented in one way, and you can say, oh, it was very difficult for Hercules. He had to use his mind. It was a struggle, and that can be engaging. In a movie, you should show that. So you should show Hercules' struggle. You should show him coming up with ideas, and then in a game, when a game is do, don't, show. That was the rule I was going for. Show, don't tell. Do, don't show. That's the steps from book to movies and from movies to game. I don't know why I suck at this, but thank you for sticking with me. So you should do that in a game, and that can take some time. Like it's normal in a game to spend maybe like 10, 15, 20 minutes on struggling. Like say, just if it's a puzzle game, you leave it to the player and then they can figure it out in their own time. But it sucks to have someone in a movie struggling for like a long time, and I mean like nothing's happening. It's just different mediums, is what I'm trying to say. So in a verbal movie game, it can be fun to spend an hour getting to a new planet, proving your worth to the champion that you're trying to recruit, to persuade them to make the argument. I think that could work so much better in a game setting than it was watching it as a movie. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say about Rebel Moon. I have caught up now to Invincible, a show that I liked, an animated TV show about superheroes, and it's of course adult and gory and violent, because a lot of things are that, and there's an evil Superman. So not exactly original, but I liked it. The first season, the second season here seems to be split up, so you're getting like half a season. Not particularly a fan of that, but if it means that the work conditions for the animators are better, then I can certainly live with it. It seems there's been a lot, especially in anime, about that, but I'm not knowledgeable enough to speak about it, I think. I can talk about Invincible, first part of second season, and I feel like Invincible is going downhill. Like it's not standing out enough. It's not doing enough new things. It felt like it was just treading water, like wasting time. Passing time is the third of it. Yeah, is the term. I don't know where they're going with the story. I'm pretty sure that it's based on a comic book. I don't know if it's finished or they're waiting. I mentioned this before, but no harm in repeating it. I like the endings to things. I like the story has a beginning, middle, and ending, and I'm not sure where the ending of Invisible is going or how long it will take to get there. I feel like maybe if we can only get 2 great seasons, that's it. Then it'll be great. I don't really need series to go on for 8 seasons. So I feel like Invincible has dropped a bit in quality. Although I noticed animation errors, like with his costume. Invincible has they all sort of like have the letter on the costume, like Omni-Man has an O on his chest. Immortal, I think, is one of the characters has an I, and also Invincible has an I, and the dot over the I is kind of like his mask. So he has the top of his shoulders, his clavicles, his neck is yellow. And then there's like a blue border, and then his midsection chest, the lower chest area, the rest of his torso is yellow to form an eye. But sometimes that wasn't drawn in the series, and I noticed that. I'm like, okay, are we getting sloppy here or something? Also, season two kind of starts in a rough way. It starts in okay. I'm gonna just say it. It starts in a different universe because they need to be established that. Um, but it took a while to figure out, and I think they wanted to do like a gotcha or something, but it just ended up being confusing. So yeah, I don't know if I can recommend Invincible if you haven't already started it, because I don't know where it's going, and I feel like they're yeah, just wasting time or yeah, running around in circles. Uh, Actually, I had a bit of frustration watching the second season because of a superhero character, Adam Eve, um, because it just really frustrates me to watch someone that's so potentially theoretically powerful struggle with everything. Like Omni-Man is the big evil Superman. He's indestructible. No one can beat him. But Adam Eve, she can, because she can manipulate atoms, molecules. Um, she she's basically Doctor Manhattan from Watchmen. If you know that, so, like she's God. Like she can turn an apple into gold. She does that. So no matter how strong a Omni Man is, she can manipulate his atoms. She can take him apart on this cellular level. But she doesn't. There was some good ideas about Adam Eve. I think I'm mostly interested in what she's up to than the main characters. Um, there's some interesting ideas about her doing stuff but doesn't have the knowledge. So then she inadvertently makes something bad. There's a there's a plot or situations with her parents where she's like, I can manifest food, like her parents are struggling. She can manifest food, or she makes an apple into gold and says you can sell it, it's real gold. But her dad is very he's a mole. What do you say? He's stand up. He has beliefs. He's an honest. At least that's where he comes from. He's an honest working man. Um, so he doesn't want that. He wants to get by on his own, which is a nice idea. Of course, execution triumphs intense, which is a fancy way of saying they had a good idea about having her parents being like, well, but it's unnatural. They have some. I'm not going to say resentment or restraint, but they're cautious about her powers, and I think that's a good idea. But the way that they're doing it is not the best. Come off as very two-dimensional for animated, but very. It's difficult to take the parents' side for me, but I can see their point of view. I can see the argument. It could have been done better, I feel like. Yeah, so that I don't think it's bad at all. Maybe if I try to end this, like say, can I recommend it? So far, yeah, it has good things. It's Invincible. If you haven't watched it, you can start it. I just hope that it ends sort of soon, because it feels like it's just going nowhere. Crisis on Infinite Earth Part 1 is an animated movie set in the DC universe, where you have the Flash, Superman, Batman one. We actually have a lot of DC heroes in this one, and I'm not well versed in these heroes. I only know a few of them, but it's nice to have big team ups. But I don't know about this. This movie is confusing. There's a lot of time travel, flashback, flash forward. Um, there's a lot of the Flash in general. This one was confusing. I don't really think I need to spend a lot of time on it. I don't know why they made this. It's also like it's kind of like the same story that we just had in the Flash movie. Like, can we only tell a story about the Flash traveling in time or dimension or what we want to call it? Maybe then don't tell that story again. for a long time, please. I didn't enjoy it. I know I usually talked and praised DC animation a lot, and saying, well, at least the animation department is doing what the live action is not. But this one was a dud. Um, I'll look out for part two, see if something happens. But this one was, yeah, confusing and messy. So you probably can do something better with your time. I have read the One Piece manga quite a bit. I can't really remember how far I made it, but I'm aware of the manga, and so it took me a while to be like, okay, let me watch the One Piece Netflix series, just because it's how are they gonna translate something with such a cartoonish style, and the answer is that you actually don't. You use real people. You use some effects for the powerful or supernatural stuff, but other than that, you actually keep it grounded, and I think it works. That's a long way of saying I enjoyed the One Piece Netflix series. I can't tell you how close they are to the manga because I forgot a lot of it. I forgot a lot of the details. But I can also tell you that the series stands on its own very well. It's definitely a new fans begin here situations. You can enjoy it, and yeah, I had fun. They look as well as they can with the as their manga anime counterpart, because they are just so stylish in anime. Like they have exaggerated proportions, and I like that. I appreciate that. I like animation. I like exaggeration, and these are real, and they feel real. I should say in One Piece, there's solid acting in there, even for someone who has like a fish for a face, or fish off a face. I don't know. Um, and it's also pretty good contained, like the first season. Like, of course, there's a little build up or notch to what's coming, but I feel, I can say, satisfied watching the first season. It's a nice part of the chapter of a longer story, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I guess that's the biggest recommendation I can say, that I'm looking forward to One Piece season 2. Um, yeah, so if you haven't watched it, I'll recommend it. Lastly, let's talk about two games that I played. And the first one is called The Pale Beyond. I was very happy to see it in my Humble Bundle so soon, because it's relatively new. I think it's not even a year old, and I've been paying attention to it and looked forward to it. I know that the developers mention it, and it's obvious in the game that it wears its inspirations on its sleeve. It's very obvious, inspired or takes some inspiration from a game called Frostpunk, and I really like Frostpunk. Frostpunk is a game about surviving the cold in like cold apocalypse, the end of the earth. So you're building a village or a city community, and you have to maintain food and heat mostly. About around a furnace, that's the center. You're building about that, and that was a cool mechanic. And there's sort of the same in The Pale Beyond, and it's really interesting or funny if you want to go that. When I started playing Frostpunk, it was relative close to when it released. It was very unbalanced. I felt like they did some updates that made the game a lot more fun. It was easy to fall into a loop where you have the people in your village be like, "Oh, we're cold," and then you tell them, "Hey, then go work in the cold mine so we can power the furnace," and they're like, "No, we're cold," and then things keep getting worse, and you lose the game. That's not fun. And right now, or when I played it, The Pale Beyond, unfortunately, was the same. Yes, you can do these hard, difficult games with like manage about resource management and it'll have consequences, and some of the people will die and all that. But it felt terrible to play. To me, it felt like an exercise in misery, and this is where I make a little grandstand about difficulty. I can respect that developers have vision or ideas, and we're going to build a difficult game where you have to make hard decisions um, based on resource management, who lives, who dies, how to get through the cold. I can get that, but it's not fun for me to play, or it's not engaging. It just felt like, yeah, misery stacked on top of misery. So that's where I argue that if you give me an easy mode or a story mode, or heck, if you want to call it like game journalist mode, whatever, because I want to experience your story and see the ending. And I did that for The Pale Beyond. But I wasn't enjoying it. I kind of like gave it up and be like, okay, you, the people, the characters, you can now manage yourself. I'm not gonna keep you happy or satisfied or loyal or whatever parameters they set up. So it ended in a shit show, and that's my experience. Like like say this, it takes 2 pieces of wood to keep the furnace um, warm enough to keep everyone happy for a day. That's not exactly how it is, but that's kind of like how I'm describing now. And then you can pick up 1 piece of wood per day, and the person that picks up the piece of wood now gets frostbite. So it has to be kept even warmer, but you can't even go to minimum heat. And then it's just like that. And the game also pulls the rug underneath you, from underneath your feet, or cheats or sets up situations. Because you're not building a city like in Frostpunk. You're managing people, crew from a ship, but then something happened and they are somewhere else, and then something happened and they're somewhere else. So I didn't have time to adapt to my situation. I didn't have a way to get resources. So I did not enjoy playing The Pale Beyond. Maybe they can make an easy mode, or maybe not. I mean, that's totally fair. I've always wanted to play the Dark Souls games and Sekiro games, but I'm not interested in that sort of difficult experience. So I can't, unfortunately, recommend that you play The Pale Beyond. It's also in The Pale Beyond. There's you can make choices, but I didn't really see the consequence of that. And there's a lot of writing, or for me, then it'd be reading. That's how that works. And I've talked about this before. I know that this is kind of like a me problem, but I can only read so much before I get this interest. So I could say you could do less, like have fewer characters but voice acted. I know it's that maybe you feel like you have to then have voices in different languages. I don't think that's the case. I've seen plenty of games that are only in English and then have different subtitles. I know but that's also work. I get that, and The Pale Beyond is made by a relative small, I think it's fair to say, indie studio. I get that. I get that it's a cost up front. But it just makes me so much more engaged with the characters when they have voices, and I don't have to read. So I end up skipping or scrolling too fast because it didn't matter. So yeah, unfortunately I can't recommend playing The Pale Beyond. Too bad, I was looking forward to it. If you would have told me like 10, 15 years ago that video games would have been one of my cheapest hobbies, to the point of where it can actually be done for free, and that I would have more video games that I knew what to do with, then I would have not believed you. I would have said, get out of here. But that's the situation that I find myself in. That's at some part of that is because I play a game on like a 5 to 8 year delay. Um, no, yeah, by choice, sure. Um, I've just learned that if you buy a game on release, that is the best way to guarantee that you'll get the worst version of the product. Oh, sorry, I got a text. Yeah, so as I was saying, if you if I buy a game, if you buy a game on release, um, not saying the product is necessarily bad, but it will likely be the worst version of it, patches, DLCs, and it'll also be the most expensive ones. And good games just don't age, or they age like fine wine, if you want to say it like that. Um, if they have a certain style to them, the graphic is there where I don't notice. They still look great. Um, and yeah, all of this is to say that I was very surprised when the Epic Game Store had Guardians of the Galaxy as a free game recently. First, I thought it was the Telltale version. I had that in a Humble Bundle, and that version is also great. So yeah, big was my surprise. You get this. I remember when it was released, and people talk about saying this is great. This is a big game, and it is a good game. And to be getting it for free, this what I feel is relatively close to release. I was surprised and pleasantly surprised. So I happily just started playing it the same weekend. Um, the um, the story is what drives the game for me. Guardians of the Galaxy. You play a Star Lord. That's fine. That's to be expected. The relationship with Gamora, they're not a couple. They're not a thing. That took me a while. Also, they're based on the comic book. Um, don't mind at all. Telltale game did this same. Um, but I don't remember people complaining about like saying, "Oh, you got the Vish version or the stunt doubles," like they did with the Avengers. Um, Actually, Gamora was the one that was most different from her other, from what I've known from the movies or the other game. That took me a while to get used to. But the Guardians was the core of the good part of the experience for me. I turned it down on to easy, and then like I adjusted some of the damage output, so I would do a lot of damage and take very little damage. Because the combat system is not fun. That wasn't the fun part of me, or the fun part of the game for me. Um, the fun came from being with the Guardians, yeah, having interactions with them, how they talk to each other and among each other. And there's a lot of that, and that was great. Some of it, unfortunately, gets interrupted when I do an action. Uh, that's what it is. The game is completely linear from start to finish, um, which is fine. I kind of hope for when things are in space, it's nice to fly to other planets, but it's also nice to have a nice linear story. So know that going in. I had a great time with it. As I said, uneasy, enjoying the story, enjoying the Guardians. The music is a big part of this game. There's a lot of cool segments um, based on music. If you can do you can do a huddle thing, a little group get together doing combat, and then you get music. It's random music, so sometimes you get Rick Astley, or you get like a bit of a slower song. But I thought the music was on point, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't have a lot of frustration um, with the game. Mostly the combat was just boring, and I turned it down to easy to get it over with, and that worked for me, so I could get to the good parts. It's a bit of a personal story. It's a little bit out there, but maybe not for Guardians typical things, because you are on this grand scale. And I was amazed that you can have these games for free, and um, I hope you got it. Unfortunately, I'm not like early with these videos. Other than that, I would recommend it. Put it on a wish list. Get it on a sale. You do you. You know your gaming budget. Um, so, yeah, that was a great game, and this I think this is what I what I've been up to um, since we last spoke. Uh, I talked a bit about the next when World of Algebra 1 was the next video, but I'm not going to talk about the next video because life has a way of happening, and then I don't know what to do. Um, so I'll just say thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed here, and yeah, see you next time.